and operator of the Hippodrome.
All right, so we will recess until 1 o'clock tomorrow. So it's 11. All right, good morning. Let's call court to order. Today is Tuesday, March 1st, 2022. It's 9 a.m. Proof of posting, please.
The agenda was posted on Friday, February 25th, 2022 at 3:10 p.m.
Thank you. And if anyone has a public comment, they can come forward now from the audience. Yes, sir.
My name is Shannon Caraway. I'm Vice President for Business Development for a company called Solar Prime. Currently, we're trying to develop another 300 megawatt solar farm and 300 megawatt battery energy storage project here in McLennan County. And it's out north of Trading House Creek Reservoir, that area there. We're preparing to submit a proposal to this body soon for a county tax abatement for the project, and just wanted to stop by ahead of time, introduce ourselves, and tell you what we're doing.
Going to D on the proclamations resolutions. We have nothing this week. Under E, under consent agenda, I have no recommended pulls. Does anyone else have a pull from the consent agenda they want to discuss? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. All right, Dustin.
Yes, sir. Judge, if we could go to item N1, this is discussion and or action on matters regarding COVID-19.
These case numbers have decreased for the hospitals.
All right, Judge, do you want to accept that for recording purposes?
Yes. Is there a motion to accept that report for recording purposes?
So moves.
Second. There's a motion and second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Pass.
All right, if we could go to item N10, presentation from Texas State Technical College regarding Central Texas Industrial Training Center.
There's a mismatch between the number of jobs that are available and the number of people that are available to fill those positions.
Move to accept for recording purposes. Second.
Have a motion and second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass.
All right, if we could go to item N6, that's the Greater Waco Chamber of Commerce Monthly Economic Development Report for January 2022.
Know that we have had one project announcement for this first quarter, and that was in McGregor with Messer.
All right, if there's no questions, or a motion to approve the chamber report for recording purposes?
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Pass.
All right, we can go back up to item F, budget amendments. F1's regarding the FY22 budget. Francis?
FY22 budget amendments, starting with F1A.
Is there a motion to approve F1D through F1I?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass.
Under item G, bids, RF.
Recording in progress.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Let's call court to order. Today is Tuesday, the 14th day of February. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone. 2023. It's 9 a.m. Proof of posting, please.
The agenda was posted on Thursday, February 9th, 2023 at 3:45 p.m.
All right, thank you. Let's pause briefly for a moment of silence, and we'll have our Veteran Service Officer lead us in the pledge to the flags.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the Texas pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas,
one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, any members of the audience to make comments to the commissioners on business matters, please do so at this time. I don't believe anyone called in either, right? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to go to the supplemental first. We got two little housekeeping things to take care of. Going under the supplemental agenda under travel and education. We've got two requests for travel here, and this is something that we've been working on. Many folks may not know exactly how the law enforcement groups in the county deal with mental health things that come up from time to time, and of course it's a big problem in every state, every county, every city. And so law enforcement's many times engaged in this. We're working on ways to try to be able to handle these on the street where there's certain individuals. The only alternative we've had in the past many times would go to the jail, when really that's not where they need to be. They're not going to be any better off getting out of jail. Once they get out is when they went in. They need to be evaluated and have mental health treatment designed around their condition. So in that, the Sheriff's Department has made, I think, a very wise decision of having mental health training for all officers in patrol that are out there, folks that are in the jail. And the person that's headed that up is Tiffany Burns, who does all the training. And then in our specialty court, we've got Amy Lowry, who is working to help the court understand options of diversion and other tools that are available to them to handle these mental health situations that come up in the community. Working with the city of Waco and the new Chief Victorian, as well as Daniel Thompson with the Heart of Texas Behavioral Health Network, formerly MHMR. There's a program in Denver that's been very successful, and they have made one trip up there to do some initial looking.
It's Andrea Lewis, Judge.
For us, and they believe it is, and so this would entail approving travel for Amy Lowry and Tiffany Burns, to make this trip to Denver and go through the program that Denver PD is successful, see how it works back in our community. So in consideration of under items B, under travel and education, under B1 and B2, I make a motion to approve these two travel expenses.
Second.
We have a second. Is there any discussion? No discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. Thank you. All right. I'd like to go back to the regular agenda under bids, RFPs, RFQs, D1 regarding RFP review and RFP 22-013, construction manager at risk, services for remodel of downtown jail under D1 is based on Mitchell Lanking's separate interviews to be conducted with the top-ranked firms selected to serve at CMR. So I'd like to call on Ken Bass.
Yes, the first company we have coming in this morning is Masonic. Yesterday, well, actually, I thought about it over the weekend. We had a few questions that I was holding in reserve to ask in the interview process, but I got to thinking about it. I thought it would be better to go ahead and give them those questions and wrap those into their presentation. But so that's what I've done, and we have these guys here this morning to sell their services.
Okay, so presenters will come forward to these microphones right here. Is that how we're going to do it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then I might point out that the Commissioners Court is brought in some of our department heads to help work on this project that are qualified to look at them as well, which is Dustin Chapman sitting in the back. He's our county administrator. Zane Dunham is our county engineer. Ken Bass is head of our purchasing, and TJ Jackson is their director of maintenance. The court makes a decision, but these folks' opinion matters quite a bit to us as well. So that's how we've approached this. So,
And I'll share, also have Cinnamon Alexander, my assistant, here as well.
all right, good morning. Okay. So how will y'all present this? So,
I was gonna just.
Make an introduction,
Do
yeah.
I need to sit here?
well, if you don't mind, we will record it. You can stand up there, either one.
Okay. I mean, I'm kind of loud anyway. I'm about half deaf, so you can find out. Anyway, I want to thank everybody here for allowing us to make the presentation. You know, Masonic Construction has been in business in the community for 54 years. I think most we all know each other here. We're very happy to been allowed to turn in on the project here for renovating the annex. And with that being said, we brought a full team of people. Everybody has a part in the play. Now I want to turn it over to Eddie. He's has a presentation, introduce all the team members of what we're going to be bringing to the table.
Okay?
Yeah. With that introducing, I'm Eddie Masonic. I'll have a role in this project as well. And it's quite a project. It's really exciting. I think we've all kind of on our team, got a little more excited as we walked through it. Met with Ken Bass and some of his team late last week to kind of walk through, kind of get a better feel for our approach and get a little more excited about this very unique project. So we think we've assembled a very well knowledgeable team here. We've got team members here with a combined experience of over 80 years in commercial construction. I'll start with an introduction to Sam Blunt. He's going to be the lead project manager for the project for Masonic Construction. Sam's got over 40 years of construction experience. He's actually built jail in the past. He's worked on other government facilities. He's got a very extreme understanding of what some of these government regulations or requirements for the courtrooms, understanding the construction of an existing jail, even if it's not going to maintain itself as a jail, is a very positive attribute to have. And Sam's brought a wealth of knowledge into our office. He's been with us about 2 years now, and he's been sharp as a tack and certainly has the expertise to take on a project like this from a management standpoint. Assisting Sam out in the field is going to be Joe Stone. He's our senior superintendent here. Joe's got over 30 years of commercial construction experience. He's actually built the McLennan County Juvenile Detention Center years back. You know, 2 out of his last 3 projects have been complex structural renovation projects. One of them at Waco Hall on Baylor University campus, and the other was tearing down 35,000 square feet of an existing high school and then adding back 56,000 square feet, all while still keeping classes ongoing in the building. Lots of challenges go on when you're dealing with existing facilities. Those have got to be renovated, and Joe Stone's got an extremely lengthy resume that amplifies those type of projects. Working along with Joe and Sam is going to be John Kazanis as the assistant project manager, although he'll probably be playing superintendent at times as well. John and his about 4 years of career with us so far. Has excelled very quickly. He's extremely sharp, very detail oriented. He's got a tremendous experience in a short period of time on renovation projects. He's been the lead point of contact with all of our projects at Midway ISD over the last 2 years and has really won over that entire school district. There's not a lot, anybody that's had anything bad to say, if anything, nothing but wave his flag very highly. These renovation projects and school buildings are very, very sensitive, as you guys could imagine. And John's done a great job on his past projects and current ones as far as making sure that those clients' needs are maintained and that everybody has a safe place to go to school each day. Then we've also got Andy Sonnenberg. He's going to be an assistant superintendent on the project with Joe as well. Andy's completed several projects at Baylor University, many of them in existing facilities. Most of them actually are renovation projects as well. Again, you're dealing with that existing conditions components, understanding your limitations of dealing with an existing structure. All the while, you still have people that are working in and around you, and you have to make sure that everything is tidied up and that, again, that your client's needs as the projects progress. So Andy's extreme experience on campus-style projects, sensitive renovation projects, he's going to be a great fit to help supplement Joe out in the field on this project. And then, of course, we've got Aaron Miner here too as well. Aaron is would be the pre-construction lead on the project. None of our projects exceed budgeted pricing. Aaron does an extremely thorough job on the front end, verifying existing conditions, going through the plans, helping the design team, making sure that things are actually that are specified correctly the first time, invigorating our subcontractor base on in advance of selecting contractors for the project, and always on top of everything. And we couldn't have a better person leading the pre-construction charge here, person himself. Through the course of this, as far as the presentation goes, Aaron's going to lead into a bunch of pre-construction and identify how we would handle that process, how the pre-construction process flows into construction, and then hammer on some of the other project challenges that we foresee as this thing progresses on. So I'll just turn it over to Aaron and let him dive into how we'll approach it.
Good morning.
Morning.
Aaron Miner. Like Ed said, I'll be the lead on the pre-construction, but again, today it's our team. Can't do this by myself. One thing that's really good about the way we're approaching this project through pre-construction, we're going to have our construction team involved in the pre-construction, let them know what they're getting into. It doesn't make any sense to make realistic but unrealistic budgets or unrealistic schedules. We see that all the time. People put something out and they say, oh, we need this built in 12 months. Well, today's market is not going to happen. And so we need to have realistic expectations. The pre-construction, I can go into budgets, schedules, the estimates, all that kind of stuff. But again, it's today's market, what we're into. Let's be realistic. And it's what does the county need? We've got to come to all these meetings and make sure that we're putting out a product that one, the end user is going to be happy with, they're going to be able to maintain, and it's within budget. Like Eddie said, our team here today, I think that sets us apart. Leading into the pre-construction, and we're going to produce schedules. We're going to go through the phasing plan. We're going to get with your staff, and we're going to make sure that the expectations are met. But what sets us apart is that, again, our construction team is going to be part of that process. Sam is going to help me. Like Eddie said, he's got a lot more gray hair than I do, and brings a lot more experience to the table as far as been there and done that. But he's going to help me through the pre-construction. Sam is so thorough, goes through all the notes. These architects, they have a difficult job. And these renovation projects, they're gummy. That's the best word I like to describe them as. They're messy. And you got to get into the weeds of it. You got to go out there, field verify. And that's one thing that Brinkley, Sargent, and Wigginton is going to need, is for us to be boots on the ground for them and be their eyes out in the field. So having our pre-construction team that is part of the construction process, and you're not dealing with a team that's just passing the buck on. And so having Sam and me involved up front, I'll be your I guess money man. I'm sure this project being a senior risk methodology is gonna be audited. I'm not sure who the auditor is, but I'll be handling that on that end. But again, Sam being thorough and then moving him into construction and then passing it on to, and again, I'm over here, I have a biased opinion. I think the pre-construction process is the most important process. Joe will tell you that the most important process is getting the building built, getting it renovated. But setting up with the right team, right subcontractors, there's some questions about, you know, do we bring an MEP team in up front on, early, and get them signed up to help with procuring equipment. Right now, electrical equipment is way out, so we've got to be looking at all those aspects. But again, having our construction team part of that process is going to be very important. Sam has put together a pre-construction schedule. And again, we didn't bring a nice PowerPoint presentation, but you do have this pamphlet in front of you. And we've been thinking about this project. We've walked it out with Ken Bass and his staff. But again, having the architect and their folks all up front, letting them know what the expectations are. And again, this is very preliminary, but we've got to get this timeline established of when SDs, schematic design, and when is design development, and then when do we get into actually construction documents. Again, we do a lot of the cement risk process that can get drug out, pre-construction can. And if you don't have a roadmap to help you get to construction documents and get it out to bid, that's half the battle. Jonathan's going to talk a little bit about project management software that we use, but we use this software also for competition purposes. So once we get this thing, everybody's happy with the schedule. We're happy with the budget, making sure it's going to be brought in under budget. We put this thing out to competitive bid. So we're going to reach out. I don't know, we got a database of probably 1,500 different subcontractors. Right now with the construction market, everybody's busy. We got to look at not only price, but we got to look at, can they man the project? Do they have the right foreman for the project? Do they have the workers to man the project? This job is pretty much called a 6-story building, 5.5 story. It's a big building, get lost in it pretty quick. We got to make sure we got the right team members signed up on the front end. But again, this is very preliminary, but this is something that we can produce. We talked with the architect team, make sure it's realistic for them to put the documents out. We know that the young lady that is, I guess, leading the charge is here in Waco, which is great. But we work with architects from out of state, actually, from Austin, Dallas, San Antonio. So we have the capability of communicating with them and getting them the information they need. Again, this is just a tool that we use. And then also, before this thing goes out to bid, we will produce a very specific line item task project schedule so the subcontractors know what they're getting into before they sign up for the work. They need to know, is this a 12-month project or is it a 16-month project for their overhead purposes. But again, we're going to try to fill all this out during pre-construction. I can bore you with the details, but again, we have a good team here, and that's what I think that we're bringing to the table, different than our competition with our expertise. So,
Aaron, do you have a couple of extra copies of that? If you'll give one to TJ, if y'all don't have them, and Zane. You got one more, give it to Dustin. Hey, and if y'all don't mind, TJ, Zane, and Dustin, why don't y'all come up here and sit in these spots here? Who will put one there?
Something else I want to mention is our depth in our company. You can see there's a bunch of old guys up there. I know Ed and Sam, they got still a lot of work. I'm getting some gray in my beard, and whatnot, but we also.
We don't have a problem with old people.
But we had the youth here with the technology aspect.
There you go.
Of things. That was one of the questions that Ken had brought up. I mean, this access control, security, the technology, audio, visual, we have the capability. I mean, now with these schools that we're building, and they're putting in top-notch stuff. And again, it's the coordination and working with the consultants and the architects and getting this stuff right on the front end versus, coming to you guys with change orders all the time. That's what we're trying to eliminate during the pre-construction process. Let's get everything uncovered, all the unforeseens, and do that properly. But the expertise, Sam and Joe, just recently, Joe's finishing up a 170,000 square foot warehouse, concrete tilt-up building right across from Amazon. We're building it for the Gross family. But Sam helped me through pre-construction with that. We got it in budget for Taylor and his father, Bob, and put this thing out to bid. And it came in under budget. Joe, we just finished this thing. It was a 9-month duration project. But again, that shows the team effort as far as us having working together, I guess. So you got a good team here.
There's one thing I'm trying to add to Aaron's in the pre-construction process, and it was a question that Ken brought up to us that I think, I want to drive the point home. Bringing on some of the MEP team or all three, the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing contractor early on during the pre-construction process could be immensely beneficial for a project of this magnitude. I think that's a really great idea, Ken. We've taken this approach on some projects in the past, and what it allows you to do is that you essentially have a design partner at that point. You've got somebody that is helping you out, sourcing the equipment, making sure that brand XYZ is just as available as ABC, or maybe they're not. But at least you know that on the front end, and you're not waiting until you get hard bids come back, and then somebody says, hey, yeah, that's a good price, but let me tell you the bad news about being able to get the equipment. So those are conversations that don't need to be waiting until we're taking bids. That needs to be vetted out. That needs to come to the surface during the design phase. And if we're bringing on a design partner of that capability during the design, that gives us, the project, the ability to move faster once construction starts. Your equipment can be procured faster. You can prefab more. The level of coordination, you could start your 3D coordination during, at the tail end of the design phase to ensure that, your mechanical ductwork and your piping are going to clear structural elements. I mean, you can move a lot of things, but moving concrete columns and beams gets really tough. Where there's a will, there's a way, but there's obviously limitations. So I just want to take a minute to highlight that I think that's a great approach. We've done it before. Did it actually with a project at Baylor where we had about 9 weeks to gut a cafeteria and put it back together. And then they wanted to replace the air handling units associated with that part of the building as well. Well, we knew, and this conversation happened in March of the prior summer. So at that point, we said, guys, if this is going to happen, we need to be able to release this equipment now, even though we're not even done with the mechanical design for the rest of the project. And then in no way, shape, or form did contractor A that got the equipment, that didn't mean that they got the project. You still competitively bid it out to ensure that the client gets the best value. But you bring a design partner in on the front end, and maybe they're just procuring the equipment, maybe they're actually helping the design to the MEP engineers out as far as with the design of the equipment for the building itself. But involving them with a local subcontractor in the design phase is going to step this project along very quickly. And we've got a team with the experience that has done that in the past, and it's a very sound approach that in this market, especially like Aaron was talking about, lead times of electrical equipment, mechanical equipment, I mean, unfortunately, they're really not getting any better right now. So about all you can do is just be more proactive on the front end, and having a design assist partner would go a long way in that.
What are your biggest challenges? Which areas and supplies and materials are you having the hardest time getting?
Electrical panels, most specifically.
Getting breakers, but there's brokers and stuff out there like that. But some of this technology stuff, the audio visual equipment,
right?
We cannot. Some of the stuff is made overseas.
Yeah.
Trying to get it here has been an issue. So we need to try to uncover that those things
early.
For sure.
Yeah. Good.
But we're gonna take care of you during pre-construction. We're gonna make sure that, like Eddie said, all these unforeseen conditions are uncovered. But then also, we got a bunch of guys sitting here that haven't had a chance to say anything, but, during construction, as far as keeping things on task, or logistics, you've got this logistics plan in front of you or this 11 by 17 that we passed out. We've kind of been thinking about things. We bought things out with Ken Bass and his staff. You flip it over, and I know we've got the Google image up here with some talking points. But again, once we get this thing in budget, get it out to bid, we get the right subcontractors signed up, and we turn it over to Joe and his staff. And logistically, it looks simple, but if you drive, I know you guys drive downtown all the time. It's a mess right now with the streets and whatnot. We've got some suggestions maybe about closing down the parking area and the sidewalk along Columbus Avenue and how we're going to access. But Ken and his staff did mention to us that this parking area, the building we've got highlighted here in red, is property of the county. And those buildings are going to come down, and that potentially would be our construction yard.
Right.
So that helps out tremendously because this building being multi-story, we're going to have at times 30 to maybe 100 employees on site, depending upon what tasks are happening. And so there's parking, there's material deliveries, there's dumpsters. How do you get people in and out of the building? Something to think about. We've got little blue highlighted areas here for location of temporary stairs and trash chute potentially. We've done that numerous times. I mean, Jonathan just got through with it at Midway CTE. We had to have an exterior stair there for ingress and egress for people getting in and out of the building. You can't just rely on that one staircase that is currently in the building. So something happens, and heaven forbid we have something happen on the project, we got to get somebody out of there, get EMS in there. Things to think about. Something else that's come up is the elevator relocations. Elevators are a pain, and we know all about that. Joe has had to install plenty of retrofit elevators at Baylor. Any elevator company you deal with is a pain, just bottom line. But there's more to it. It's not just an elevator. You got a pit, you got the roof structure that you got to do with the actual structure. So there's been some talk about possibly installing those on the outside of the building and whatnot. That's a great idea. But again, until we get into the nuts and bolts with the architects, there's some things to think about. But, John, if you want to talk about, we've got a system that we use called Procore. It's a technology, it's cloud-based software. Again, it allows us to communicate with architects abroad and whatnot. John's going to talk a little bit about that there.
Ken,
Yes. I mean, again, since we're talking about pre-construction, don't want to hit this hard, but just a question that came up. Again, you're talking about a lot of work in the pre-construction phase, and I'm all about saving money, but just wondering how you derived at your pre-construction costs that you have in your proposal. I mean, I'm not, again, about saving money, but it just seems light for the amount of work that seems like we're going to be expecting to get in the pre-construction services phase. If I said that right, I'm just
so we've
pulling that up.
turned in pre-construction fees that range from $5,000 to $10,000 on some of these ISDs. This is, to me, a hefty pre-construction fee. We are going to be here as far as going and field verifying with the architect and assisting them during their drawing phase. We're going to take care of what's necessary. We're right down the road. It takes us literally 3 minutes to jump in my truck and I can be here, field verify anything for them. So if we have weekly meetings or meetings twice a week, whatever is necessary to facilitate. We don't want to be here just for the pre-construction phase, I guess is what I'm saying. We want to renovate your building and turn it into a courthouse and office space. We're not here just to do budgets and estimates. So as far as money standpoint, I mean, we're wanting to do the project. It's not just I guess.
All in one.
Estimating, yeah, exercise for us. But yeah, no, to answer your question, yeah, we want to do this project. We turned in a very aggressive pre-construction fee, and I mean, I'm going to be here. Sam's going to be here, and so yeah, go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, let me add, for Ken, when you're not knowledgeable enough on the projects, I started back in 1976. These projects we got here, that's all I've done. Concrete structures, 4-pipe systems, and I was raised that way. That's all I thought every project was done from 1976 until 2013. That's all I've ever done is these kind of projects. This one, when I heard about this project, I wanted it. You don't get these kind of projects where you got to think, figure out how you get the new system in the old building, how to vamp elevator systems into an old building. I did the VA hospitals, all 4 buildings, revamped those and met the Historical Society requirements on outside and a new building 7 added to it at the same time. Plus the new chiller system, the loop system, and the chiller plant, built that back in the 90s. So this building right here, that's when you talk about the fees, when you're experienced, the project you have, we're gonna get out the gate running with the architect, not leading behind him. He's not gonna have to teach us the words, the sayings, the knowledge of what's there. We're gonna be able to help him from day one, all the way through the whole process. With the experience of what I've been through, what everybody here has got each part. That's why it's gonna take so many of these guys. The new technology and stuff, the courthouse, I did the Dallas Records building back in the 90s. I mean, that was a chore, but now they got the new technology for the courtrooms and stuff. Now that's where all these younger guys come in to help us older guys figure out how to get the pipe chases and these chases. So that's why we can be able to do this project with the team that we have and the knowledge of everybody on board that we have here. It's not just one person no more. It's everybody takes that way. So.
Good.
Yeah, I want to add, Sam is so thorough. That's kind of what we have in our back pocket. I feel like between our competition analysis. And I've been with Masonic 17 years. Sam is so thorough. He is going to read every note. He's going to help the architects. We're in this together as a team with the client and the architect. It does not benefit us to overlook something and come back to you guys and say, uh-oh, we didn't see that before. So again, we're going to uncover every rock and turn it over and figure it out. But Sam with the pre-construction and going into construction with Joe and John Zanis here. Another thing is renovations. We do a lot of renovations. We don't always get the nice, pretty, ground up, $50 million projects right off I-35 kind of stuff. We get the gummy work, and we're good at the gummy work. So,
yes, sir.
do we answer your question?
Hey, Ken, yeah, does that answer your question? Because you seem to be concerned that we're not charging you enough for pre-construction. And rest assured, if we put that cost value for all the computer programs, Procore, how we solicit the staff at the office, I mean, we absorb a lot of that in overhead.
That's what I'm.
Number down on these things is pre-construction, just like we do on every school or even at Baylor University. And that should be a very competitive number. The rest of it we have to absorb as the overhead and owning the company. So don't worry about, I mean, if we're not charging you enough, let me know. We'd be happy to put some more money on that if you feel like that's necessary.
That's why I'm trying to move very carefully in asking the question. I'm just wanting that
It is
statement.
well covered, Ken, so please don't let that be a concern.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Some more questions about pre-construction?
I don't think at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, we heard a lot about pre-construction now, going into the course of construction, where me and the rest of the field team kind of come in. Touched on a little bit of the technology that we use, and it's very important to us. It's been a growing pain over the last 5 years or so, kind of getting the full system that we utilize up to the standards that we expect out of our own performance. One of our biggest tools is Procore. It's pretty much the industry standard nowadays. It's how we manage all of our documents, all of our construction documents, submittals, transmittals, and so forth. It's how we stay organized. It's how we excel at our job, especially during the construction phase. One of my primary functions is managing that software as we get, anywhere from the change documents or ASIs from the architects. I go into that program and update that, and it automatically pushes that live document to every subcontractor that we have on the books. That takes any kind of guesswork out of our construction timeline. It kind of ups the ante on those guys to stay in tune with the project. They no longer have that excuse of, well, I didn't get that email or it didn't come up with the fax machine. So they have it right there in their email. And on the other side, on the financial, we also use state-of-the-art programming that allows us to be very responsible with our financial documents. Aaron mentioned all of our midway projects. It's kind of been my baby for the last couple of years. And all those projects were completely, audited by, the state, which was very, at times taxing. But we came out of it with a client that was very appreciative of the efforts that we put forth in that field. It made everything run smoother. There was no scrambling for documents, looking for different things. We always had it right there where we needed it.
Has the county hired an auditor for the project? Do y'all have a third party? I'm just asking.
No.
We have an auditing department.
Okay.
And I'm sure that our practices will line right up with what they're used to.
Yeah.
But that's one thing that I pride myself with, especially with the company that I'm working for, is just transparency and honesty. Aaron kind of touched on it, but even during the construction phase, it doesn't benefit us any to be anything other than a good partner to both the owner, county, and the architects, engineers that are on the team. And that speaks to our, all the way back to our pre-construction phase, because if we don't do our job there, when we get into construction, it just magnifies those issues. So if we were able to get a lot of those complicated clashes out of the way early, it just only benefits us in the long run. Some other things that make Masonic stand out from a lot of our competitors are our in-house services, and we've already, went over extensively our pre-construction. But in our course of construction, there's not very many general contractors that I'm aware of in town that still staff. Where we up to 20 hourly employees. So we have our own labor force in-house that can do anything from hang structural steel, high-end trim carpentry, place and finish concrete, expansion joints, you name it, we've done it, and I've done it with them. And so that sets us apart, because if there's any scope gaps, Lord willing, we don't, but if there happen to be different this, that, and the others, we can easily just take care of it. We don't have to scramble, try to get a contract written. We can just go out there and get it done. And that's also why we keep our job sites clean. It might be a simple thing, but it helps, especially on a job like Aaron says is gummy. We don't have a lot of space to operate, and that's not a nothing issue. That is something that we deal with, but it's something that we do very well. We're always working in confined spaces. Another thing that we're really good at, as Aaron said, is the creative problem solving. A lot of our jobs right now, it seems like, are extensive and complicated renovations. Anywhere from renovating a portion of the building to then tie into a new building, or completely gutting a building from the 60s, dealing with whatever we find on the way. Luckily, the shell that y'all have for us is nice and demoed and abated, I've heard, so that makes us happy compared to some of the other ones. But the challenging renovations are our forte. It's not always the glitz and glamour of the $50 million project, but something like this that we can do for the county right here downtown. I think the vast majority of us are all Waco locals, Waco natives, including myself. But the different challenges that we expect to face are that of an existing concrete structure. It's not a framed building that we can just punch holes in wherever we would like to get things to work. It's part of the building. And like Sam has laid out, he has a very extensive knowledge, as well as our lead superintendent, Joe, of concrete structures. We know how to work around existing conditions, whether that be getting the lab testing involved with x-ray machines to get reinforcing laid out. I've heard that we're going to be dealing with some rather large chilled pipe. 12-inch plus insulation is not nothing. And so that's something that we're very much well aware of right now, before we've even started the pre-construction process. But yeah, it's a lot, but we have a good team behind us, all the way up from the office down to our hourly workers. We all have a good attitude, and we're passionate about the construction industry. Is there any questions I can answer on construction processes?
Any questions?
Do y'all foresee having to spill out into the street any?
Possibly, depending upon when we walk this thing out with TJ and there's gonna be some ADA issues along that pathway along Columbus, so, just like I kinda got shown in this logistics plan, we may be shutting down the parking area along Columbus that's against the building to tear out and redo some curb line as well as sidewalks. But as far as shutting down any other streets, there's the alleyway between the courthouse and the building itself. That's gonna have to get apparently put into the documents where all that gets renovated as well. But I don't see shutting down 5th Street or 6th Street at all.
Or Columbus?
Columbus, that's what I'm saying, we may be making some parking area, possibly, maybe even one lane, but until we get the construction documents, again, we'll.
But also, kind of like what I was mentioning earlier, as far as the nature of our projects, tight spaces, complicated renovations, we deal with, we deal with the public in those scenarios. For example, I keep going back to Midway, but all of our school renovations, we keep those buildings active, live schools every day. They have kids coming in and out, and we can't just go in and do whatever we would like to. We have constraints that we deal with, and we're happy to do it.
The project that John's on right now, it's 140,000 square foot. It used to be Midway's high school, it's their middle school now. One of the middle schools, we changed one into a middle school, but it's phased. And I get these construction documents, big old thick set of drawings, and tell the architects, we can't do all this at one time. We got to visit with the school, we got bus traffic, we got to reroute, there's parent pickup. And so really, this project is very challenging with all the downtown whatnot, but like John's saying, we've got the expertise, we can get this figured out with your staff and make it as, it's gonna be an inconvenience, but we'll make it as much as less of an inconvenience as we can.
Having that lay-down yard is gonna help you a lot. I'm glad we were able to get that purchased. We can get it slicked off pretty quick, so,
When we built the Dennis Ed McCandless Academic Center at MCC, that was a project right there in the middle of Lieutenant Community College's campus, and we had to park staff down the hill. I don't know who owned that property. We had to get permission from them to park, but we actually bus people to the job site. Luckily here we can foot traffic wise, and again that's where Andy and Joe come in. We've got Andy's working at Baylor Brick. That's an occupied building. There's professors in there coming in every day, and he's renovating 3 lab locations. So we're used to working in occupied areas. Luckily, this building's not occupied, but you still have county staff that's got to get to the courthouse.
yeah. And security issues, that's a big one, and it's different. Well, I can see schools having similar, but, every Monday, we have a jury call of over 100 people that come in here, and if they get chosen, then they have to move from the building behind us over into here to the different deals, and they go through security and those things. And plus, the alley is used for security purposes as well. But I know y'all can figure all that out, but there are a lot of moving pieces. In regards to Columbus, if Chip and Joanna can shut down Washington Avenue, then we ought to be able to shut down.
That's right.
That's
right.
You know about shutting down Columbus. You can talk to St. Paul about letting us have their parking lot too. That'd be nice, but.
Yeah, it's something that we're accustomed to. Like I mentioned, the security aspect of the school is, just as important in my opinion with those kids every day. That's something that we stress to our trade partners almost on a daily basis.
And we're gonna have people here every day. It's not just Joe Stone being the superintendent. He's got, Andy, myself, whatever it takes to get this thing, it's a 5-story building. If Joe's on the 5th floor trying to lay out walls with a subcontractor, somebody's gotta be there taking deliveries on structural steel or concrete truck driver or something. We gotta have boots on the ground.
There's no armchair quarterbacks in this one.
Right. Except us, that we might be there.
We've talked about pre-construction and construction, and this is just basically for my own enlightenment. Everybody else may already know the time, but I'm not wanting to hold you to it, but on the ballpark number of months, will this project be finished during my lifetime?
So
How are you feeling today?
So we are gonna push the cart as fast as you let us push it. We want the project, we want it to start as soon as possible. Our staff is available, ready. So this, like Sam put together a pre-construction schedule. I mean, we need to hit these dates and hold the architect, the engineering firms accountable for hitting these dates so we can get it out to bid. But we were told to propose on a 16-month duration. So
16 months.
that's what currently, once we get started construction-wise, that's what we've got figured in the project is 16 months. Now, as far as if we can shorten that duration until we get some construction documents and see what we're up against, we'll talk about that. But yes, sir, we should be able, we're not building a ground-up, brand-new building, but we should be able to renovate this in 12 to 16 months.
And I'd like to throw in too, one of the reasons we want to bring in our feed trades early is because they do have long lead times. The sooner we get them in, the sooner we get ordered, the sooner we can get it turned over. I mean, we can get everything done if we don't have our VAVs or our air conditioners, you know.
Yeah, Amy's bringing up a good point. We're not having to wait on drill piers, structural steel delivery. So we don't have that luxury of, okay, you gotta build a building before all this stuff gets here. We gotta start procuring and ordering this stuff. I mean, your building's ready. I mean, it's ready for us to go. I mean, we bought this thing out, it's abated. We don't have to wait on the abating contractor. Hopefully, the architect can get the permits pretty quick from the city. We had that discussion, already before on some smaller renovation projects, but, again, it's ready to go. So what Andy's bringing up is a good point. We've got light fixtures are a long lead item and
Access control, I mean, talking about security, all of our new technology, card readers, as simple as a little piece of plastic, you'd be surprised. If it was a new building, we would be, buying it out right now.
Baylor's got a wait line of over a year for some of their card readers. So
Right, that's what
the sooner we get them on order, the better off we are.
Right.
And that's with many of our, at the brick, we do a lot with, chill beams and all that, and just getting VAVs is a 2 to 3 month wait at times.
And what Andy's going to do is, right, if we can get in the basement, start the chiller system, the pipe system, and the arteries going up, it'd be better along if we can feed from bottom up, get the first floor and work our way up and give you back those places sooner than waiting for equipment. So lead time and getting ahead of when we can get ready to see these and see these drawings, we should already know what equipment we're going to be using. Let's go get bids on them, get them purchased. That way we can start sliding in the building and then we start going. So,
you had mentioned pre-construction and construction. Something I want to touch on that we haven't touched on yet is post-construction and warranty period. We've been here a long time, like Ed mentioned, we've been in business 54 years, and we take care of our customers. We live here, we have families here. We're gonna take care of this project. I know that, in the specs, we have a 1-year warranty, but a lot of times we like to say we have a lifetime warranty too.
I'll have kids going to school across the street for probably 6 or 7 more years, so.
As far as
I'll be there often.
Right across the street.
All right, yeah, good.
But, no, we're gonna figure this thing out as far as the front end. We can get it built for you guys, and then also taking care of it after we're complete with it. Any roof leaks, all mechanical equipment's always keeping somebody cool in a room or hot in a room is always an issue. So we're gonna be here to take care of it and get all the bugs and kinks worked out until we're done.
You mentioned it earlier about budget and change orders and those kind of things that make a project sometimes a little frustrating, but don't want to miss opportunity as you get into it. Is opportunity where a change order has to do with value engineering, where we have maybe a better way and a cheaper way to do it after we've already said this is how we're going, and we'd look to the construction manager at risk to advise us, said, this was the plan, but let me show you this other option. We're right in the middle of this thing, but you're gonna save this money and it's gonna work just as well.
That's his middle name.
Yeah, no, we'll
That's the
bring
most
all
frugal
that.
man I've ever met in my life.
We'll bring all that to the forefront.
Yeah.
One thing we have to do is get it approved by the architect and engineering firm.
Sure, yeah, oh, yeah.
We'll bring anything to you guys, we'll make sure they're on board with it. If it can save some money, we're gonna save some money.
Right, good.
So,
Have y'all ever worked with Brinkley Sargent before?
no, sir, we have not. We've worked with a ton of different architects. We haven't had the opportunity. We're chomping at the bit to get to. Their resume is stellar. They've done a lot of these kind of projects.
Yeah.
But, no, we're wanting to work with them.
Yeah, and that was our reasoning to select them, is they had done over 80 correctional institutes, or jury, but also jails and those kind of things. And so understanding that was important to us.
Yeah, Judge, the one thing is I know we're up here touting a lot of school work, working around the kids and their staff and teachers. But I've built a juvenile center. Joe Stone has built the juvenile center here off of Folsom Road.
Right.
Sam has a ton of experience if you look at his resume. So that's something we bring to the table. We've also had an opportunity to work on the 3 judges, the one in West and the 2 here in Waco, renovating their courtrooms as well. So we're wanting to get one of these under our belt.
Right.
Okay.
And if Pinckney's done any GSA courtrooms, I've done the Lubbock federal courthouses, a lot of federal courthouses for the judges. If they had any input on those GSA projects, I've done those. So.
Okay, good. Any questions?
Or did you say if they have input? Because I can promise you.
If they had input on anything.
That's coming, that's, yeah.
Well, that's something, I mean, that we deal, I mean, like Aaron said, we keep mentioning schools, but I keep saying that if any teachers ever want to retire, I'm gonna hire them, because they have a lot of input, and so we got a lot of bosses on those projects. And that's something that we're very accustomed to accommodating, not necessarily dealing with, but accommodating.
Right, right.
You know, listening to them, figuring out how they're gonna actually use their space and building it to their specifications. Something that we're very good at.
Good questions. Zane?
Judge,
You know,
Judge, may I ask a question at this point?
y'all have a lot of large projects ongoing. You know, you mentioned the brick, you mentioned Midway schools, and I think in the paper recently, y'all won another huge project somewhere down the road. Just want to make sure that if y'all get this one started,
This is our most important project right now. We awarded this job currently. I know you mentioned something about in the paper. We haven't been awarded no big project. We're finishing up some large projects for Midway. John's gonna be through in July at the renovation that he's currently on. Joe Stone is currently working on a project for the city of Waco. It's out in Axtell. It's a precast wall project, so this hits perfect as far as if we get started here in about the next 6 months on the renovation. So as far as our pre-construction team, we're ready to go. We need something to start working on in our office.
And I'm floating. I'm gonna let that one look like that.
It's something that we don't really do. You know, once we start a project, it doesn't become a back burner. You know, the team that we commit to, they see it through 90% of the time, barring any kind of emergency.
Zane, does that answer your question?
it does. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this will be leaps and bounds our most important project now and going forward. And we will pursue projects very cautiously to ensure that it doesn't take away from this project team or the pre-construction process if we haven't even started construction. So, I mean, that's our focus. We want a keynote project on our resume. Obviously, this one fits the bill. But once we have that, then we back off on purpose, because we've got to take care of our existing clients.
Right.
We don't get projects like this very often, even at an opportunity. The last one we want is for not to be taken away from it by other distractions.
Mike, did you have a question? We have Mike Dixon, our attorney that works with us on the documents, who's on Zoom. Mike, did you have I thought I heard.
Yes, I did. This has been an impressive presentation, but I hate to bring a bad question or a hard question to you, but this this is gonna be a long and complicated project, and it has to be a team effort, and having good relationships within the team will be important. Design and you and the contractor, the subcontractors. I bring this up because when the county used Masonic on the West JP office, the architect over that project indicated that Masonic was difficult to work with on that project. And I just wondered if you had any rebuttal to that or observation, or if there was something that was just screwed up on that project that that wasn't your fault.
And the architect, the architect, sorry about that. Hold on.
Technology.
Could y'all start in here maybe?
So,
as far
was
as
the architect initially Wallace?
That's right. That was Bruce Thackers who all.
Bruce.
Mr. Dixon, this is Aaron Byner. I can't see you on the screen here, but, I am not familiar with anybody, Judge Perea or any of the staff being unhappy. Jimmy Clark, who's no longer with us, let him rest in peace, was the superintendent on that project. He lived and resided in West. If something happened with Judge Perea, it hasn't gotten back to us.
Well, it wasn't Judge Perea. It was the architect saying between, I guess, him and.
Yeah, that's Bruce Thacker, but he's no longer with CPNY either.
Right.
I think he's out on his own now, but again, I've worked with Bruce in the past and haven't had an issue working with him in the past.
Okay. Well, that's all. I just wanted, that's one that once you hear it, you have to ask it.
It's kind of an odd comment.
Yeah, so Bruce is no longer with CPNY. Like Eddie's saying, we work with him on other projects now that he's out on his own. Yeah, was it Walnut?
Yep.
Yeah, the Greater Waco
Manufacturing Academy, yeah.
facility. Yeah, we worked with Bruce on that in the past, or recently, actually.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And secondly, I do like your ideas on managing lead times. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do full subcontractor bidding until after the contract documents are finished, but there may be a way to do some of them during the design development phase. But you're talking more about just talking to contractors and getting ideas, not actually procuring that.
Now, I mean, both. There's a path to do both. Like, you can have an early release package of plans that is, once the equipment has been designed, those plans are sealed, we competitively bid out the equipment package so that you can just procure the equipment, because, the piping and materials that attach to it don't have the lengthy lead times. What we're trying to accomplish, our approach is to bid out the equipment that would have lengthy, we're talking 30 week lead times. Those packages.
But now, would there be any proprietary restrictions on it? What I'm saying is, okay, you get a bid in on a certain type of air conditioner or what unit or whatever. Does that reduce the number of subcontractors that can bid, or are you just going to size it?
No, sir. We've done this in the past, like Eddie's mentioned, putting out some different packages, but it does not deter a subcontractor. I mean, this has all got to be open book. I mean, if you're going to invite somebody to bid a project, I mean, they better have the credentials to do the job, and if they're a low bidder, then by God, you better award it to them. You don't want to waste their time.
Yeah, but so you're just doing sizing. You're not saying any exact type of equipment or whatever. You're just really giving the sizes and the quantities and that sort of stuff.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
I just have
Commissioner Miller.
I just want to make sure I understand this document. So this is not showing the timeline for the entire project?
No,
This is taking me just up to construction bid?
Correct. And again, it's an example of what we can produce when we visit with the staff and the team, the architects, because we've got to get their timeline too. But again, it's a tool to hold people accountable, just like we do ourselves when we, and to go back to your first statement, we will produce a detailed bar chart schedule prior to bid date, so that all the subcontractors understand what they're bidding, what they're getting into. Putting out an RFP that says, oh, we're gonna do this in 12 months doesn't make any sense. You need to have a detailed bar chart schedule, whether it's 7, 8, 10 pages long with tasks, so that they understand what they're getting into, and it can accurately be bid and competitively bid. So that's just an example of what we can produce.
But it does take me up to the
Construction
bid.
start.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay.
And it also shows a down path of us procuring some equipment with bids prior to starting the full construction, or the county buying the equipment, it doesn't matter. It's how you want to procure long lead items. Otherwise, this job is gonna drag on past my retirement age. So,
Other questions? Any questions?
Judge, I've got one last comment.
Yes.
Aaron, Eddie, correct me if I'm wrong, but this project, we will probably have 90 or 95% local subcontractors and suppliers. I mean, other than the elevator and specialty security needs, I mean, is there any reason why we wouldn't have all local?
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's a perfect project for it.
Well, that's important to us, and appreciate you bringing that up.
Absolutely.
It, not only, you know, those are the people that live in our county, and they're gonna take you know, pride in doing it, because they're gonna be around it, they're gonna have to drive past it. Plus, the economic impact that it has back, if all the subs have businesses here, they're paying sales tax here, their kids are going to school here, so that is very important. Appreciate you saying that.
One other last comment. John Kazan has touched on this briefly about the fact that we are able to self-perform. I mean, we have crane operators, certified welders, concrete form setters, finishers, millwork specialists. I mean, sometimes we have over 60 hourly employees. We're currently down to 24. But that ability to have manpower, welding machines, shoring jacks. I mean, a few years ago, we built a memorial dining hall for Baylor University, and it was a $4.5, $5 million project. It'd be finished in 10 weeks. Think about that, 10 weeks, start to finish. And it was the early procurement process of mechanical equipment and having all the parts and pieces standing there. Then they turn us loose, and we work 7 days a week, sometimes at night, to get this thing finished in 9.5 or 9 weeks, so that they can occupy it on week 10. One of the few projects that happened that quickly at Baylor, and there were signs, there were quite a few of them where, you know, you uncover something in the wall and it was totally unanticipated. But,
So it's a good example of when our equipment came in handy too, because if it weren't for our crane, company-owned crane, that equipment would not have been able to be set in place.
Right.
Thank you for your time.
You're quite welcome, and, you know, we always want projects done as soon as possible, but we really want to be realistic on timelines, because we do a lot of planning from that estimated time that we take over the facility, and with all the people and the personalities that we deal with in and around these courts, it's important that we give them realistic timelines, and so Dustin doesn't have to work overtime answering those questions. So we really appreciate y'all's time. We're tickled to death that local contractors are interested and competitive, and you know, we've got some really good options here. So we recognize all the talent that's sitting here as well, Eddie, and we appreciate that very much. And it doesn't go without notice, I can tell you that. Anything else? Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Let's go into a 10-minute recess. Okay, it's 10:21. Let's call court back into session. Next is a presentation under the agenda item for selecting construction manager at risk for this project that we're excited about, being able to take a existing building that has good bones, and we've already got it down to bare concrete, so a very good and talented contractor can come in there and turn it into something that's pretty. And it's gonna be like making a silk purse out of a sow's ear. But we have gone through the process of, and I wanna recognize our team that's helped Commissioners Court look at this project, any of these projects like this, and worked in it on other projects as well. And have Dustin Chapman, our county administrator, Zane Dunham, our county engineer, Ken Bass, our purchasing agent, and TJ Jackson, that's our director of maintenance for the county. But I will tell everyone that the commissioners make that decision, and we appreciate the advice and support we get from our very qualified team members in this regard. So earlier today, we heard a presentation by, we have two finalists, Masonic Construction and John W. Irwin Construction Company. And so at this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Irwin to make any kind of opening comments or introduce any of his folks and proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Judge. I want to take 1 minute to thank the court for allowing us to be here today. We don't take anything for granted. We're not presumptuous. We understand the difficulties of the job that you all face on a daily basis. And that is, there's always more needs than there are money. Kind of like going home. But we really understand the importance of this project. It's needed. It's either unfunded or underfunded and handed to you all to make it happen. But it's important to the civility of our community long-term. A lot of people use the courts, some in good ways, some in not so good. Anyway, but I cannot I can't overemphasize the importance that our staff has put in on this job. Since we knew we made the cut on the qualifications at the very, very first, everybody in the office has been focused, and there's not a day that goes by that we don't discuss some or all of this project. The good parts, and trying to find if there's a hole in it anywhere or anything that we need to be more focused on. So far, these guys haven't found a thing. We're optimistic that our relationship with the court in previous projects has created a little bit of confidence in our ability. We don't want to rely on that totally, but I'm not going to sit here and go through all that. I'm not going to waste the time. We constantly look for ways to improve the service we provide to the customer. We only have so many options. Generally, price is the number one impetus. Number two is technology, and number three is tools and equipment, and along with that is personnel. And we are blessed to have what I think are the best personnel in Central Texas, but I am biased. A long time ago, a subcontractor gave me this business card of his, and I'm going to read this to you because I still think it's germane to the conversation here today. It said, "The bitterness of poor quality lingers long after the sweetness of low price is forgotten." So I say that just not for any reason other than the fact that we're not low, but we're very proud of our number, and I'm gonna let these guys talk more. I'm gonna shut up. Thank y'all very much.
So I'll hop in here and I will go ahead and introduce the team that we brought with us today. But first of all, happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
So secondly, on my left here, I've got Kevin Carr. He will be the senior project manager for the project. From start to finish, 100% of his time is dedicated to your project. And Kevin, he can kind of go into it a little bit, but has some very impressive history on the buildings that are very similar to this one. But we'll get to that later. My name is John Bennett. I will be a resource on the project. I will be involved all the way through, but I will be a resource on the project. We've got Ronnie Thorne. He's our senior superintendent. He will be involved in the project all the way through. And I've got Clint Speckmeyer, who is our in-house designer, who will be a resource on the project as far as code, planning, City of Waco, et cetera. So with that said, I'm gonna let Kevin kind of start going through our presentation, and please don't hesitate in the middle of something. If you have a question, please hop in. We'd be happy to answer.
Thank you.
All right, again, thanks for having us. So I think, we're talking, you're trying to select a contractor to help you figure this project out along with your design partner. Construction is and always has been, it's a people business. I think what you're really selecting here are the people that you feel comfortable that can help you work through this process with your team of individuals, with county folks, with the design team to figure out the best plan and the best budget to deliver what the project's goals are. And I'm just here to tell you, I think we have the right mix of people and the correct people that can deliver for you. I would just tell you that, there's a lot of folks, there's a lot of contractors in town, there's a lot of big contractors out of town, but I would tell you the difference with our people, we're gonna find ways. There's a lot of people that can give you 6, 7, 8 reasons they can't do something. We're gonna be that one that keeps looking until we find, the right mix, the right balance of how to solve whatever problem is put in front of us. So, I really think it comes down to people. Who do you feel comfortable with? Who's the right team member to plug in with the county? And then, we kind of like to say, I always say it, it's kind of a 3-part thing when selecting a company. It's people, process, and plan. I think we definitely have the correct people to execute the work on this project. I think we've got the right processes in place that we'll continue to follow, that we have followed on past projects to deliver the project. And then we're going to develop the best plan and the right plan for the county that makes sense for the team. So I think that's really what I ask you to think about as we go through this. And so let us talk a little bit about, just from a staffing perspective, so you understand what we proposed on as part of our process. So our core pre-construction staff will consist of mainly myself and John Bennett. Ronnie's going to be there over our shoulder. Clint's going to be there as a resource, but the day-to-day folks that are putting the work in place, that are starting to develop estimates, that are starting to develop schedules, that are figuring out the correct plan for this project is myself and John Bennett. So those are the people that you're going to be working with full-time throughout pre-construction. If we're successful in that effort and at the end of that duration, the plan is to deliver y'all a GMP that's acceptable to the county to execute the work. So once that happens, we're going to seamlessly flow into construction. Myself, I'm going to be there. I'll be in all the discussions from day one till the last day of pre-construction. I'll continue on throughout the entire course of construction. Ronnie's going to be our senior superintendent. We're going to bring on another gentleman, Will Carpenter, who'll be an assistant superintendent working out on the project site. Behind the scenes, not forgotten, but John Bennett's going to be there as a resource. Cameron Young and Michael Olson, you'll kind of notice they're listed as resources but have asterisks by their name. Well, what that asterisk means is both those gentlemen are superintendents with us. There may be, once we develop the plan for the project, a need to have, for some period of time, we may determine that, based on the level of finishes that courthouses generally have, that we need to bring in a Michael Olson on the finish side of things, during the course of construction so we can properly manage and execute the work. So that's the reason those resource names are there. Cameron Young, same way. Clint Speckmeyer, again, he's kind of our in-house code liaison. Any issues, building permit type issues, Clint's got the relationships. We know how to solve issues and work with the city of Waco from a permitting perspective. So I just wanted you to kind of understand, our the way we looked at our, and we call this our core staff in both the pre-construction and construction phases. Something we kind of want to do is just, because really the biggest thing that, you know, you're not just asking someone to develop a schedule and a budget for you. What you're actually asking us to do is develop a schedule and a budget that survives the next 31 months. You know, it was advertised as a 15-month pre-construction effort, a 16-month construction effort. That's what the current thinking is right now. We'll figure that out in detail once we get into the project, but what you really are asking for is us to be clairvoyant so that when we provide you a budget that's acceptable to the team, it survives that 31-month period. So it's not just costing it today dollars. It's not coming back to the court in 12 months when we got through pre-construction and trying to explain to you why our budgets aren't accurate, or we busted this particular scope of work, or we busted that particular scope of work. You're really asking me to be clairvoyant and give you something that provides an actual tool. So when we're budgeting this thing, when we're making scope decisions with the team, it actually stands up and survives. And when I say survives, that's what I mean when we actually go out to bid. You've got something that comes in that's consistent with that budget. We don't want to have to sit here and explain to y'all how come mechanical came in $2 million over the budget after we worked for 14 months to get the scope defined. So that's really what our mission is. I just want to spend a few minutes on a few slides, show a little history in our performance and how recent history over the past couple of years. These are the major projects that we worked on over the past 4 years. Show you our performance in a construction manager type setting and how we performed from a budget perspective. Obviously, the McLennan County Venue Project, the base, is a project we're all familiar with. Just for kind of reference, I'll start to throw some numbers on the screen, but just so everybody understands, so from a pre-construction duration effort, this was a 10-month effort for us. We got our agreement executed with the county in June, and then so the overall duration to get from when we were hired in June to get to an executed GMP was that entire 10-month duration. Drilling down a little bit to deliver that first conceptual project estimate. So when we first got hired, Populous had a few drawing sheets. They had some pretty elevations, and a few narratives as far as what they thought the systems would consist of in that facility. So they asked us from a conceptual level, what do you think the cost of this project is? Well, that $30,437,000 estimate just for timing, we delivered that in about 8 weeks from when we were hired. So we got hired in June, we delivered that estimate in August. As the project evolved, the design evolved, we did another iteration of estimate. So design development estimate, about a $33.5 million estimate. At the end of that 10-month period, we got to produce a guaranteed maximum price for the county. So our GMP that was agreed to was $31,727,000. There was, as part of development with the design team in the county, a handful of alternates that we bid at that time. So there were $609,000 plus worth of alternates. So ultimately our GMP was $32,333,650. Great. How did we perform as far as when we actually built the project? So we actually built the project. Final cost at project completion came in at $32,189,907. $144,000 under budget. Okay, pretty good. But we also, something to note, we were able to incorporate through buyout savings through the process, $1.5 million worth of food service equipment build out, sports flooring, sports equipment to accommodate the 6 basketball, 12 volleyball courts, all the furniture and furnishings for the entire facility, including all the various events that they would host, plus the facility dedication monument were included in that final costing. All right, so another project that we just recently completed, the new elementary school over in Hewitt for Midway ISD. 107,000 greenfield site, brand new elementary school. This one, a little shorter duration. We got hired later in the process of where the design team was. 5-month duration on pre-construction services. So on that particular project, within 4 weeks of getting hired, they already had produced the design development documents. They asked us, what do we think this project is worth? So within 4 weeks, we developed a $32.37 million design development estimate based upon where the design team was. At the end of the 5-month period, we developed and got accepted our final GMP for that project. So our final GMP was $31.97 million. Same thing there. There was a handful of alternates that the school district was considering pursuing, depending on how the budget shook out. They accepted over almost $750,000 worth of alternates in our GMP. Guaranteed maximum price, $32.7 million. Okay, so how'd we do at the end of all that? Went and built the project, turned it over on time. They started school in August of this past year on time. Final project cost at completion, $38,082. $638,000 under our guaranteed maximum price. There's also another thing to note. We also, during the course of construction, incorporated some significant additional work as buyout savings was identified. We worked with the school district. They added some significant elements to the project to the tune of almost $295,000. So really, we underran our GMP by the $638,000 plus the $295,000. But just how the actual project shook out at the end of construction. Another project here in the Waco area, the new Woodway Family Center that's currently under construction. So we got hired by the city of Woodway in March of this past year. This particular project had a pre-construction duration of 7 months. So here you can kind of see when we first got hired, we delivered that schematic design estimate, that $7,141,000 in 6 weeks, just as a reference of time of how long it took us to deliver that first budget. That particular project was budget challenged to the tune that the city of Woodway only wanted to spend $6 million on their facility. So during that 7-month period, we developed a path and working hand in hand with the city of Woodway and the architect to what are the elements, city of Woodway, that are a must-have for this new family center? Well, we gotta have 2 gymnasium spaces. We gotta have, you can kind of see their feature signature element out front. We call it the hoop. We gotta keep the hoop in the design for the look of the facility. We gotta have a community event space. So then we said, okay, understood. We know what you gotta have. Here is your path. We basically gave the design team a path and said, if you incorporate the following things into your design, we can get you to budget. They did that. They produced a design development set of documents that we budgeted, $5.993 million. Said, great, we're happy with the budget, we're happy with the design. This is the city of Woodway. Designer, finish your construction documents, which they did at the end of the 7-month period. We went and bid the work, turned in a guaranteed maximum price of $5,999,458. It's currently under construction right now in the city of Woodway. So you have some feel for how that works. So I just wanted to, like I said, the first, at least the way it's represented right now, the first 15 months of this project is rolling our sleeves up, getting ingrained with your design team, and starting to figure out this project and what it's going to take, how long it's going to take, what it's going to cost. I would tell you the single most important thing today in working on this project that we're going to be focused on is scope. It's scope, scope, scope. You're going to hear me say that a lot because that's the pre-construction estimating. Yeah, it's a technical task. There's a process to it. There's things that we'll do no matter what the project is from a takeoff perspective, quantity survey perspective, making sure we're capturing things. But the art becomes, even these large design firms, they have trouble communicating as the design evolves what the ultimate scope of work is going to be. That's where the art comes in. That's where our experience comes in, and we got to fill in the gaps. We got to fill in the scope holes in the design process. We know you're not showing this, but we know ultimately it's going to be needed. So that goes back to avoiding the surprise that I was talking about. So we're not having to explain how come you gave me a budget and then 12 months later, that budget is suddenly $1.5 million of variance to what you were originally showing. Well, we need to make sure we capture that scope and figure out, the correct budget. Because again, like I said, what you're asking me to do is provide you with a schedule, a plan, and a budget that's survivable for the entire duration of the project. So some of the other things that we'll be doing during pre-construction, just like our other competitors, developing our execution plan in pre-construction. That's aside, it's a concurrent process to all the detailed estimating, quantity takeoffs, and budget that we're doing. We're firming up our plan, we're firming up our sequence, we're firming up how we're managing the site, how we're gonna stage the work. All these things become super important on this particular project because it's not a greenfield site. It's an actual downtown site that's an entire city block. There's not a lot of real estate for, it's easy to be successful as a contractor on a 50-acre site. Man, you can be organized. You can have every staging yard that you want. When you're in a downtown environment, it gets tough. Earlier in my career, I was lucky to work on, we built a 13-story, all cast in place, federal pretrial confinement facility in the city of Houston that encompassed an entire city block. The good thing here, on what I think I know, the federal government that we work for, they didn't have a lot that was adjacent to the property where they own some additional downtown property that I think would be advantageous to the team to make use of. So you got a huge step up. There, we had to figure out how you're gonna make it work in downtown Houston on Texas Avenue. And you're basically, the facility was basically sidewalk to sidewalk for an entire city block. Same thing I was lucky to work on, if you ever go to Austin, 6th and Lamar, Whole Foods corporate headquarters. It's an 8-story, they're corporate offices, a signature store on the first and second floor. 3 floors below that, underground was, again, the size of the entire city block, an all cast in place parking garage where we had to dig our way down 3 stories underground, then build a cast in place parking garage back. Then we got the luxury of building the store and the office tower on top of that, all again.
What building's that?
Whole Foods, 6 and Lamar.
Whole Foods, okay.
Yes, sir. So same thing, just like this site, it encompassed an entire city block. We know what it takes, I know what it takes to work in a downtown environment. I would tell you what I think. I think, we were provided with some of the questions. We were kind of asked, what do we see as a major challenge on this project? I really think the major challenge on this particular project is utilization. I really think it's not necessarily the project itself. It's how do we access the work? How do we get the materials to and from while working in a downtown environment where we don't have the neighborhood and the other people, working down here so upset with us while we're executing the work. I really think that's the project. It's the project within the project, I call it. We got to figure out from a utilization standpoint, how do we get materials into the building? How do we, stage those materials? What do we do relative to the sidewalk? Maybe at times we have to take over a lane of traffic just because you're going to be bringing in some significant things that just need a little bit of real estate that you just can't wish it into the building. You got to plan for that. I mean, one of the things that we're thinking about is, I don't know, does this project facilitate an exterior, we call it a material hoist, a temporary elevator, so that would allow us to deliver materials, and then we can deposit those materials on various floors throughout construction. So that's something we really want to dig into and figure it out. I mean, there was kind of the question, I think, of another question is, do we see any value for bringing on any particular early subs like HVAC, structure, mechanical, plumbing? I think the college answer, the answer I've heard for 32 years I've been in this business is everybody's going to say, yeah, we need to bring our MEP subs on early. That's what everybody says every time that question is answered. I would tell you, maybe. I think we have to engage those people, but before we decide as a team to bring them on, we got to make sure that that's the correct decision. We got to make sure we keep them in a competitive realm, because nothing stifles competition once you hire a person. They may not necessarily be aggressive in their budgeting. They may not necessarily be aggressive in their estimating. We got to keep them in that competitive realm. So we got to find that balance. I would tell you, what I'm thinking currently is I think we need to seriously think about what we're doing for vertical conveyance elevators. I think that may be a worthwhile sub to entertain bringing on, because if we can get whatever the elevator solution is for this particular project, as soon as we can get that up and running and have vertical movement internal to that building, it's going to make our project flow a lot better from a personnel and from a material standpoint. So if you had to ask me today, I think we need to evaluate those MEP subs once we get into the pre-construction effort. Do they bring some value to the project? Is there a reason we need to bring them on? Maybe, maybe not. But I think we're going to engage all those people, so they're going to be involved in the process regardless of what we're doing, whether we're formally bringing them on or informally bringing them on. But I seriously think we should probably focus on what we're doing from an elevator standpoint, vertical conveyance standpoint. I think that's what's going to be the key to making this project successful. That's my initial thoughts. So I don't know if you have any. So really with that, like I said, I think that's the bigger challenge the bigger challenge on this guy is really accessing the work, not the work itself. I think, some of the things you're seeing like today, and that's why I'm going to go back to the same thing I said, the most important, the best thing that we can do and make sure we do as a team with y'all and the architect, when we finish the pre-construction effort, the scope needs to be set. That's, in today's market, is what's going to make us successful. The reason I say that is things like electrical gear, electrical panels, some of the card access systems. We're finding that fire alarm panels, some of the specific equipment within various systems that we're going to have in this facility have become problematic to procure from a time perspective. But if your scope is not set, if we're still messing with it and massaging it and considering a bunch of options, well, we may do this or we may do that, nothing slows a construction project down greater than options. We need to take the time in pre-construction and make sure that the scope is defined. That would be the greatest thing I would stress to the county, the greatest thing I would stress to the design team. Let's collectively roll up our sleeves figuratively, and let's figure out what the scope is and what the scope wants to be. That's why I said a lot of those jobs you showed where we had initial estimates, interim estimates, final estimates, those are so important because soon as we put that first estimate in front of y'all and the design team, decisions are going to start to get made. And we don't want to send the design team and the county down a path that's not the correct or accurate path, because nothing's worse than getting the next iteration of design. You go cost it again after you've told them this is the best solution, you need to do this, and then all of a sudden we've got a multi-million-dollar bust based on that decision. Nothing upsets an owner worse to have to sit in front of you and we got to explain what happened. Seen it time and time again over 30 years, so I can't emphasize enough, scope, scope, scope.
In regards
Kevin,
to,
can I ask you a question about lead times? How are you guys looking at it from a lead time standpoint, ways that you could reduce lead times during the pre-construction phase? I know at the base, we procured structural steel and other stuff during the pre-construction phase so that it would be in by the time construction started.
Yeah, so the
Have
way
you
we
looked
kind
at
of,
that?
yes, sir. So the way we kind of on the base project, I don't know if everybody remembers or not. So the way we attacked or the way we executed the project from a construction perspective is we developed a strategy of producing interim packages. So we didn't necessarily, so we determined the things that are critical up front to make that project successful. And we went out in chunks and created interim GMPs for select scope of work that allowed us to procure the structural steel and the long span joints that were problematic at that time. some of the early structural work, some of the early utility type things. So I think that's something we would look at in design, when I keep saying define the scope. And then once we see what systems the design teams are recommending, we would start to share information that, the particular system you're looking at, albeit a great solution, be advised that it's got, an X month lead time. Things we're seeing right now for, excuse me, I don't know if this project's gonna have a package engine generator, but we're seeing 10 and 12-month lead times on package engine generators, which is all fine for a 16-month construction project. You can procure it, you can get it installed during the construction duration, but you gotta know day one, what engine generator are we procuring? If we're still futzing with that, we're still looking at options 3-4 months into the construction duration, then you got a problem. Like I said, electrical gear, we're seeing super long leads on transformers, panels. Same thing with fire alarm panels, same thing with select components with card access and some of the IT systems. You just gotta have that scope set up front. And then you're set up for success. You're set up to manage those challenges. Going in, it's gonna be, but those are the particular things we gotta procure up front. But once we get into this and we start talking with the design team, we can certainly, if we need to, or if we see, like I said, I really think we need to look at that elevator package. I think we need to look at, maybe we do an interim thing there to get that process, get them in a competitive situation and get that going early so that then we can, hopefully procure that equipment a lot earlier than we would under a conventional process. So.
Okay for questions?
Absolutely.
Questions? As you know, our design consultants are Brinkley Sargent. Y'all worked with them any before? Know anything about them?
No.
Yes.
We know about them,
but I have
but we
not.
have not worked with them.
Well, they were primarily chosen because of the kind of courtrooms they had designed through time. I think it was more than 80. Some jail work and things like that. And so that was, the primary reason for doing that. But didn't know whether y'all had any experience with them before or know much about them.
No, we don't have any direct experience with them.
Okay. And then, of course, we always want to try to use local general contractors, local subs, all those. We can because they're our neighbors, they live here. We think they'll take a little bit more pride in the project if they're having to live with it and drive by it and those things. But also it's a better economic impact back to the community if local subs are used. What is y'all's feeling about it? How much local?
So just for example, the last two large projects, the base and Midway Elementary School, yes, that is our goal as well. We want to use as many local trades as we can. Now there's some materials, some items that are just not provided locally, right? And so I can get back the exact numbers, but both of those projects were over 74% local contractors.
Right. So in this case, maybe the elevator or something like that might be.
The elevator's not gonna be something we can procure locally.
Yeah.
Most of the other work that you're gonna see from a mechanical, electrical, plumbing perspective, interior wall systems, paint, finishes. We got a great resource of local contractors that can, excuse me, definitely perform all that work.
It's a high probability that there will be a lot of mill work in each one of the courtrooms. The judges, I think, are gonna expect that. And that'll take some involvement with the architectural design team and with our team to talk about that, interview the proposers and make sure you get to make a good decision. Because if it's messed up when it gets here, and if it's installed, it will be messed up forever.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. And we don't want to have that happen.
That's a good point that John brings up on millwork. I don't want to say, I don't know. We need to figure out who we're going to use. In my prior life as well, another project that we had the luxury of working at the University of Texas back in the mid-2000s and built their new north end zone. So tons of high-end millwork.
Right.
There's high-end millwork firms that really specialize in the level of millwork that we're gonna expect in a courthouse out of the Austin area. We actually engaged an Austin area millwork firm, and then there was another big firm out of the Corpus Christi area that we engaged to execute that project. So between the public space millwork, the club space millwork, the suite millwork, we kind of had two different subcontractors working on it. Again, they were Austin, Corpus Christi, so
We just need to evaluate it.
regional, but that is something that's gonna be important to figure out the right person that can really, because that'll be a significant package on this project to figure out who can actually execute that work, so.
I didn't sit in, I don't think any of the commissioners did with, when the judges were, but I think you guys did, didn't you, TJ, and some of y'all? And, you know, I think there was a lot of conversation about technology in the courtrooms and, you know, things that can help move the process along. And then also security, which I think, you know, we're gonna have a good opportunity to improve or at least be confident that we can have security, because these will primarily be criminal courts, or that's our idea anyway. But I also know that there's a lot of history in our existing courtrooms here, the 54th and 19th, where there's a lot of design and, you know, millwork. It's really nice, and, you know, the big worry was that they would go into a modern facility that didn't have any of that and lose some of that, I call it stodginess or whatever, but you know, that's the world that they live in, and so to the best of our ability, we want to try to meet those, you know, those expectations within reason, of course.
Ultimately, that will be a decision of you all. We will collect the data, get the numbers, tell you if it's gonna impact the overall budget negatively.
Yeah.
You'll be the first to know.
Right.
Yeah, something I never realized, so I'll tell a little story. My second project out of college, we built, if you ever drive through Wichita Falls, once you pass through Wichita Falls on your right, it's Iowa Park, Texas. We built a state maximum security prison for Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Well, I was a young engineer at the time. I was on the work procurement side. I did not know, but we did. There is a security bar requirement, so I had to figure out for the storm drainage system, any pipe that left that facility larger than a certain diameter, we had to custom make individual grates that got installed in every manhole, so that if some inmate happened to get down into this thing, I didn't know anything about prisons at the time. I was like, we're doing what? I was like, that's a problem? They said, that's a problem. I was like, okay. Learned a lot, had the old skeleton keys, Folger Adams keys. I saw some of the doors up top on the old jail. I remember the security hardware subcontractor was another one of my subcontractors. So that was a unique experience in working with those jail contractors and security contractors at the time on all that stuff. And everything had to be tool steel rated. I was like, is there an official test to determine that? They said, yeah. I talked to the prison system, and they were like, they have a list of tools, they throw them in a room, they throw whatever that element that you want to test is, and they give I don't remember if it was 30 minutes or 60 minutes. And if that person can't defeat whatever that is within that period of time, pass. That's how you pass your security test. I was like, I thought it was more scientific than that. They were like, nope, that's the test. So I was like, okay, interesting. So.
Any other questions?
This project is gonna be challenging just in the fact that it's a remodel, reconstruction. What are what do y'all see as challenges, and what are some examples of projects that where y'all also done kind of a...
Some of the challenges I see, because I don't know what's going on from a system perspective, so how are we getting systems from floor to floor? I mean, is an existing concrete structure, great structure. There's just gonna have to be a lot of thought put into, you know, what we can do relative to that structure. Do we
You talking about like cabling and things like that?
I'm just talking, how do you get air services? How do you get chilled water, heating water? how do you get all those services vertically? I don't know if there's existing chases that are already being contemplated. I don't know if we're creating new chases.
They all have a grade in them.
They all might have a grade in them, just in case someone gets inside the ductwork or the piping systems.
Yeah.
So I think the concrete structure, albeit a great structure, there may be a few challenges there that we got to figure out. There may be some additional surveying that we got to do. There may be some additional, deck scanning, things like that we got to do to figure out where the reinforcing steel is. We've done all that. I was involved the entire time when the old General Tire plant got renovated. We, as John Irwin, have done a bunch of renovation projects within the brick facility itself. So the brick facility was kind of unique. It's 300,000 square feet, but about 150,000 square feet was old 1940s all cast in place concrete.
Concrete was cheap, and so was labor.
Built for stout. We had no structural issues. We did have a lot of challenges where we routed services as far as piping systems, conduit systems, ductwork systems. That was a challenge on that side. The 1970s side was all structural steel. That had the most structural issues in it as far as bracing and, we had to do more, we did no structural work on the 1940 side. All the structural dollars got spent on the 1970 side, getting it up to code, getting it braced properly, getting up floor penetrations properly secured. So, we saw kind of the entire gamut of what we have to. Same thing, we'd go in and we did a bunch of lab build-out projects. Same thing, you face the challenges of how those services are getting from one space to the other, how you're traveling vertically within the existing structure, so.
And out there, you can, I don't know if you call it get away or just add it into what the building looks like is having that utility look to it, which is now acceptable in a lot of areas, so.
Yep.
Here, I don't know that that's gonna be what you want.
It's not work.
Commissioner,
No, that was a conscious choice there.
Yeah.
That was by design, since it is a research building, let the building be what it is.
Yeah.
Commissioner Jones, I'd like to respond a little bit to your question in addition to what Kevin has had to say. The majority of those issues will be uncovered as we go through pre-construction. The architect is gonna, and his consultants, his MEP consultants and other consultants, the security consultant, they're gonna identify everything they need to put on that plan. And they're gonna draw a plan. And if we see logistical hurdles, then we will discuss it with the architect and the structural engineers and the other engineers involved to come up with a great solution so the county is not paying a penalty for the resolution. And we'll get that adopted. And whatever our first concept is may not be the one you end up with. It's gonna be a collaborative effort between the contractor and the architect and the design team. And most all of the issues that arise, that's where it'll end up being. In an ideal world, you all would never hear about any of that. It would work perfectly. And what we will need to know, and the architect will need to know, is what is required of the finished product, regardless of what the system is. And then it's up to the architect and the structural other engineers to come up with the design so that's what's delivered. And then it'll be up to us, if there's a hurdle somewhere in it, to talk to the design team about that and work it out. So, and certainly do it without a financial burden or hardship to the county. We're gonna always represent the citizens of McLennan County. We're gonna be as good a stewards as we can of your dollar, which is their dollar.
We appreciate that. How many of these on here? I know, so the Magnolia, that was a build on reconstruction type.
So these are just photos here just to kind of elaborate some of the types of projects we've done around here. So I would say, are you looking for what delivery method?
No, I'm looking for which ones were your experience on rehab, reconstruction, remodel type of.
Start at the upper left corner, John, and go across.
So
one at a time.
the Elliston Chapel at Baylor is the top left. That was a new construction site. The Brazos River Authority is a second building. That was a complete renovation with them still utilizing the building. So they had a major failure in that building. We were hired to come in and basically completely remediate all the mold out of the building, and I had to come up with a plan basically to work around the entire building to where we remove the stone, remove the exterior sheathing, completely waterproof the building, move furniture, and I had to do everything in sections while they still occupied the building, didn't interrupt. Brazos River Authority controls all our dams, et cetera, so we couldn't put them out of business. So we worked that all the way around, and it was a highly successful project.
The next one, it's the Football Players Lounge that we constructed on the second floor of Simpson. It was a 100% renovation project right in the heart of the football coaches' offices, and so we had to construct that facility while it was again operational. They did not shut down for football, obviously.
Yeah. So next is Doris Miller Memorial. That was a greenfield new construction. Highly, highly detailed project. There is not a straight line on that thing. It was incredibly difficult, all our layout, et cetera. There's over 12,000 holes on that sail or that boat shape that perfectly line up. Each one's an individual piece. And so that was a very, very detailed project that we were extremely proud to be a part of. We have the Whitney ISD, the new athletic complex. That is a new greenfield project. John, I'll let you talk about the Heart of Texas Fair project there.
Well, that was the equestrian
Equestrian
facility
center.
that was added, and that was about $11 million, as I recall. It was an indoor arena, and it was the year that it rained every day or every other day for the entire duration. And the judge knows exactly what I'm saying. But it turned out great. We're very proud of that.
Renovation.
So
Campus renovation.
you all know it's your building, you know what's out there.
So next we have the Mabry Museum. That's a new pavilion. That was an active site with children around. And so not only did we do that pavilion, we had the Planter's House, which is a historic preservation project for a historic building. We're talking wallpaper with tacks, et cetera. I mean, it was very, very interesting project. A carriage house on that one. Next over is the Magnolia Coffee Shop. That was a complete renovation. Brought that one back to basically the bones and completely did that project in a downtown setting with plenty of people around us. No problems there. The bottom left is one of our homes at the Methodist Children's Home. We have a fantastic relationship with the Methodist Children's Home, and we are in the process of basically rebuilding their entire campus. And so that has been a fantastic relationship. Going through these pretty fast. If you want me to stop on any of them, let me know. The next one is the Magnolia expansion. Again, active site. Extremely tight timeline on that project. It was ended up being $12 million. We had to phase it out because we could not knock them out completely. We completed both phases in 11 months. So it was extremely fast, extremely high pressure, and we came in under, that was construction manager risk, and we actually came in under their budget on that as well.
And that's completed, right? It's
Yes.
finished, I mean, it's being utilized.
Yes. Yeah.
And the railroad ran right beside it, and they're so cooperative.
Yeah.
Not only that, you won't believe how that's TXU, or the AT&T used to be that down there.
Right on the corner.
You won't believe how many utilities are buried under there that nobody knows about. It was very scary, very scary. So we have Mart ISD. That's the new high school. We took a picture of the gym because, in my opinion, it's quite the showstopper. And that was a new greenfield project. And then the parking garage next to that is active campus with McLennan Community College, where we had to excavate 70,000 cubic yards of solid rock and having on an active campus, big trucks just constantly coming in and out. And our plan, Ronnie Thorne is a master of getting that plan together and did a fantastic job. So that's the Cliff Notes version.
Okay. All right, any questions?
I kind of have one lingering, this is a curiosity question. In the costs that you assign to the pre-construction services, I mean, what all goes into that calculation? I don't know that I kind of asked that right, asked earlier question mark.
Yeah, we saw your question. So as part of putting together our RFP response, we actually did a complete estimate for what we thought it would take from we work backwards. We don't necessarily look at the cost initially. We look at what it would take. So we really thought what it would take would be myself and Bennett in some capacity working for that entire 15-month duration. So I think it worked out to probably a full-time equivalent of one person working kind of dedicated full-time, because I won't be working every day on pre-construction. Bennett won't be working every day. There'll be periods of time where we're working significant amounts of time depending on when the iterations of documents came out. So we developed a number. I would tell you, I've been doing this for 32 years. The way most contractors present as far as pre-construction services for this level of project, they're gonna turn in a number that's 25 to 35,000. That's just for a $30 million to $40 million job. You get a $15 to $12 million job, they're gonna tell you it's worth 7,500 to 15,000. We see it day in, day out. They give the standard answer. So we did that, and then we gotta take that into consideration. So the number I would have probably wanted to turn in was probably double what we turned in as far as actual, what we would actually charge to that level of effort. So we did that. Then we had the conversation about what are our competitors gonna do. And then we kind of reduced that in half as far as amount that we would charge the county. And that's how we arrived at our $72,988 figure.
I appreciate that.
So.
Ken, the fee really is not representative of the amount of work involved. And we're not complaining. It's our number. We put it out there. We're gonna live with it. What is just paramount here, I can't, for the rest of this whole project, if you don't hire us, hire somebody that will do this, the pre-construction correctly, because everything that happens after that will be messed up forever if it's not done properly during the pre-construction. I mean, you gotta drill down to every nut and bolt and figure out what it is, where it's gonna come from. And Kevin's already alluded to all this, so I'm just beating the drum. But you better know what all those long lead items are on the lead time, and you better get them ordered. You won't finish on time. You won't get them.
I wanted these guys to hear it. I mean,
I'm sorry.
I mean, like I said, Ken, I would have told you what it's really worth. It's probably double what we turned in. But we had to make the business decision about what we could realistically charge to that effort. That's how we came up with our $72,000 figure.
Okay. TJ, Zane,
I have a
Dustin?
question.
Yes, sir.
My question is kind of on the fringes of your pre-construction. During pre-construction, do you consider challenges, not within the building, but on the perimeter of the building, such as City of Waco coming in and closing down 6th Street, you got the school kids across the street on Columbus. The 5th Street's already tore up, may get tore up some more, you kind of alluded to some of that, but does any of that kind of go into your pre-construction?
That's a great question. Let me respond to it first, okay? Every one of us has 2 eyes, 2 ears, and a brain. And if you can't figure out when the optimum times of usage are, you need to call the city, because they can tell you. Same way with the church. And you need to avoid those when you have construction deliveries. That's paramount. The second thing is you're gonna have construction employees coming at a given hour. And I can tell you right now, every one of them would like to park right there in front of the building. I don't care if you got 2 or 200, that can't happen. And the day one of the project, Ronnie Thorne, what do I say about that? It sets the tone for the rest of the job. If you let them park there, you've shot yourself in the foot. They're gonna park there every day. You gotta have a designated area for contractor parking, for contractor delivery, where you're gonna, and dates, and Kevin and John are good enough, I promise you all, they will identify those dates, when they want that material on site. And we will make it a part of the subcontractor, if he's delivering the material, that he has to deliver it during these hours, on these dates, and then you gotta determine who's gonna unload it. It won't unload itself. So all of those things are part of what we do every day. But that's a great question, because this area is gonna be tight. And I promise you, we're gonna get a complaint somewhere, somehow, as hard as we try. Somebody's gonna be angry with us about something. But we've also gotta protect the public and their health, safety, and welfare.
Thank you.
What we also do as part of the pre-construction effort, one of the first things that I'll do, because it's just me getting my head around a project, is we'll create a site utilization plan. How are we gonna organize this thing? What's the areas of real estate that we're gonna impact, that we need to run the traps on, of coordinating with either the county or the city relative to sidewalk usage, street usage, where are we gonna stage things, so. But that also, we need that site utilization plan as well, so that when we're budgeting this thing, the way that we're gonna execute the work is taken into consideration, because you don't just want an estimate that covers the cost of the work. Well, you haven't taken into some of the unusual site conditions into consideration, where you may not be able to execute something like you normally would. You're gonna have a budget problem, and then we're gonna have a scope problem. So one of the things we do in pre-construction is we'll develop a detailed site utilization plan. We'll, like I said, what are we impacting from driveways to sidewalks to streets? Where are we parking? Are we gonna have enough space in the area that's catty corner to the project to do some temporary short-term staging? You know, are we gonna use an exterior material hoist? You kind of already set the groundwork for us. Looking at your picture there, you kind of almost, made it pretty appealing, basically, because you've already got your hoist openings basically set. The only thing we would have to figure out is, do we need a structural steel outrigger platform? Because we can't get the hoist close enough to the building so that the cab can access it. But again, I just think that's something I'm kind of stewing on in my head. Something else, I talked about that Whole Foods job. Well, that job, their corporate office tower, they occupied the first floor and then the upper 3 floors of 8 stories. Well, that was the first building. That's what they wanted first, while the store was still under construction, that was the first job I'd ever done where we did top down. And we didn't just do top down finishes. We built the skin of the building from the top down. So this one, I think we should at least run the traps and think about, well, we may have to do some of the services bottom up, but do we need to flip at some point in time and build bottom down so we can chase all the ugliness and all the dirt and trash and debris and all those things? So we're not tromping through finished areas on the first floor to get to work that we're still doing on the top floor. I just think that's something else we should actually consider as a team, and that'll inform the designers of the kind of the path they need to take. And that kind of all goes hand in hand with that development of the site utilization plan. Also, what is our sequence? I'm always big about creating an initial sequence. It may be wrong, it may be rethought, it may be it may be changed multiple times, but what is our path through this building? Where are we starting with physical work? Yeah, we got to get buy-in from the team and the design team, because it's great to say we're going to do this, but if their design's structured to do the opposite of that, then we're kind of at odds with each other. So we need to make sure this is a team event. Everybody's got buy-in. Everybody's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We understand why you're asking for this real estate or additional real estate from the county for either the duration of the project or a period of time. So All those things go into our upfront planning as part of that pre-construction effort.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to make sure I'm reading your general conditions spreadsheet right. For the pre-construction phase, you're saying that you have three positions?
So the general conditions that you're looking at, we were asked to provide what we think our core staffing costs would be for the construction phase. So we think in the construction phase, we're gonna have a core staff of 3 full-time individuals at a minimum. We're gonna have myself, senior superintendent, and assistant superintendent, full-time at a minimum. So those GCs that you're looking at that have the 3 bodies.
Are you looking at the spreadsheet of our cost breakdown?
Yeah, that's our core general conditions that would be implemented when we gotta get through pre-construction. Then if you accept our budget, then we get to execute the work under those general conditions in the construction phase.
Okay, so those other positions that you have listed here with the 0, they may come online later?
That's correct. Once we figure out the work, we may have a need for an assistant superintendent to come help with some of the structural component for 3 to 6 months. We may have a need for, to add another person just because of the volume of the finishes. I think where we're really gonna end up is we'll probably have an additional assistant superintendent for the last portion of the job based upon the type and level of finishes that this courthouse project's gonna get finished out with. But that all gets figured out during pre-construction. But that's what we're saying is the core construction management team that it would take to execute the project.
Okay. Okay, I think that last sentence,
Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
that gave me my answer. Because
Yes,
I was trying to see logistically why you just had those 3 positions filled in.
That's
And
not the entire staff, because you gotta understand, back at
Okay,
the.
well, I'm gonna be like Judge Judy, don't try to anticipate where I'm going.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
But no, because you were really clear, and I just want to make sure that I understand what you just said.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so logistically, the reason that you have those positions filled in with the costs is because right now, looking at the project, those are gonna be your core positions.
Yes, ma'am. You are 100% gonna have those people for the duration of the project.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Other questions or comments? Okay, so I would make a recommendation that we, under D1A, that we accept both the recorded oral presentations by Masonic Construction and Irwin Construction, as well as the documentation provided to be considered as being approved for recording purposes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion, call for a vote.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Judge Felton.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner Perry.
Aye.
Pass. Under D1B, a discussion and possible action on establishing final ranking of the firms seeking to serve as CMR and selection of the top ranked firm for purposes of starting negotiations for CMR agreement. And so I'd ask Dustin or Ken to make any comments about step forward.
So kind of just next step, there's still 20 points to be awarded, and so the evaluation team will go and just think back on this process today and the interviews and score those, and then from there, it'll be returned to purchasing, who will compile, and then Ken, next step, I guess, will be to bring the recommendation forward to the court.
Yes, and that would be the next step, but it needs to go before the court on the 21st, right?
Right, and so the final ranking has to be done within 45 days of when the proposals were open. So that would fall roughly, February 24th, 25th, in that time. So a decision will need to be made on the February 21st agenda.
And just a reminder, they provide their scoring, but the court makes a decision. I'd also encourage any other court members that have additional questions with either one of the presenters or the process or anything to send those to Dustin, let him take those forward, on our behalf, either back to the, prospective, CMRs and, or, other members of the group and get the answers back to us so we'll all be on the same page. Okay?
A question real quick.
Yes, ma'am.
On the, since it's already calculated in, for the committee, when you calculated the cost assessment to each respondent, did we just consider the amount of the fixed fee of the pre-construction manager amount that they submitted, or did we look at any of the other cost factors that they submitted?
We looked at the pre-construction fee, and we looked at their percentage estimate for
Contingency?
construction.
No, it's their percentage construction manager fee. And that's the percentage that's multiplied against the construction cost to determine what they received as their construction manager fee.
And with that
Okay.
fee, we're just using what the cost estimate is at this time.
Okay, so when you look at the, I don't see where we factor in any of the other amounts, but maybe we can talk later, one-on-one.
Well, let me just share,
Okay.
those other amounts
Mhm.
are included in the overall cost.
Okay, so, okay, because all I see on here, you have your, I'll do an email. I just want to know what factors went into assessing, and the reason I'm asking it now is because I know the only other factor that we're calculating will be the interview number. So it's kind of like the cost number is maybe in stone, so I just want to know how we calculated and came up with the factors. What were the factors that attributed to their cost score?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
I'll share all that with
Okay.
Okay, all right, I'd entertain a motion to approve what, Dustin and Ken has laid out as a pathway or, any, other, options that we might have.
Move to approve the pathway that's been laid out before us as far as the final selection process.
There, second. Have motion and second, any other discussion? No other discussion, call for a vote.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Miller?
Aye.
Judge Wilson?
Aye.
Commissioner Jones?
Aye.
Commissioner Perry?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, pass.
Judge, if I could, and maybe to Commissioner Miller's point, would it be helpful if, I guess if we worked with purchasing, the architect and our group to kind of have that apples to apples comparison? Because I know, and Ken can correct me, I think Denny, our architect, had some questions about where the insurance was and general conditions and not, but maybe if we had just a true apples to apples or as close as we could get at comparison for next Tuesday. Would the court find that beneficial?
Absolutely.
Apples to apples is always good.
Yes.
Yeah.
The problem is there is some confusion on where to put insurance, and one put it in their general conditions and one put it in construction costs. So it makes a difference when you apply the CMR percentage.
Well, I'll just share, I had concern with it because we probably should have set that up to where we told them what we were looking for, and we didn't. We had them just share their general conditions with their estimated costs, which again are all included under the entire project cost. And so, doing apples to apples, we're gonna have to go through and just take out everything that doesn't cross over from both companies, if that makes sense.
Or you're kind of saying that maybe one put it in the fee up front and the other might wait and it shows up later. And,
No.
okay.
No, it's a deal where just where the insurance is placed. And in one instance, it just stays as a general condition. In the other instance, it actually has the CMR percentage calculated against it. So it does make a difference. But it probably doesn't make a difference that's, gonna change that particular, might make it closer, but
So like I said, if there needs to be specific questions, like to either one of the prospects, then we'll clear that to Dustin, get the answer back, and then we'll have a spreadsheet on apples to apples, something like that. That's good. All right, well, we appreciate the presentation.
We thank you all for the opportunity.
Yes, sir. All right.
Appreciate you guys. If somebody has a question out here.
Well, that's, but you also make public comments, and that was at first. Yeah. Wait just a minute.
I got some congratulations, Judge and the Commissioner, for looking at Waco people.
Yes.
So the money can stay here, unlike the city and the school district. They go outside and get consultants, they go outside and get builders, they go outside and do everything. And we got Baylor, MCC, and all these contractors here that can do the work. Congratulations to you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
All right. If nothing else, well, we stand adjourned.